Ammar, I think we're on. How's it going?
Who knows how's it going, Shez? What do we know of these things these days anyway?
What
I
a
don't know
what a
anything.
weird and cryptic way to start this
Man,
this
I
conversation.
listen, man, I'm in an existential crisis because I had Formula One starting this past weekend, and then only I got all ready on Saturday. I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch qualifying and catch up. And then I was like, nope, it's not happening. It's next week. Oh, goodness.
Wow,
How
this
long do people need to take a break, man?
wow,
Like,
man, the
what's
summer
up with
break.
that?
This is what your kids are.
Who allowed for
It's
this to
obviously what
happen,
your
man?
kids are saying as well. It's actually what you're saying. My God, when will my kids go
Well, it
back to
was one of the
school?
weekends where the kids were away. I was like, wow, I can actually enjoy F1 live. I can watch it as opposed to watching it, hiding in my, pantry or laundry closet, watching it on my cell phone. Like this was my opportunity to watch it live. And oh
Wow,
man, it's never
I'm so
coming back
jealous you
again.
have a laundry closet. That's
It's not very big.
living like a giant house with
What
a
did you, what did you do, Shaz? You tell me you weren't scrolling through F1 news. Like it's been really quiet, really.
little bits and pieces. I mean, obviously, I have been like scrolling stuff. Otherwise, we wouldn't have anything to talk about today. Uh, but but
I
it,
mean,
but in general, no. I've actually caught up with all of the other nerdy stuff that I normally do. Lots of Star Wars, lots of Lord of the Rings. Actually, this past week or so.
good for you, man. I'm
I'm
proud
not.
of
I'm
you.
not sure anyone apart from you would appreciate that though, Omar. If I'm honest, I think everyone else in our
Well,
community is just going to be like, "What the hell is this guy talking about? What he likes Star Wars, weirdo."
just so you know, I appreciate you. You're good, man. You're good. Like and this is I blame Max for all of this because had there been question about him moving to Mercedes, we would have been busy the last 3 weeks. But here we are. So let's blame it on Max. How about that?
It's interesting that you're blaming it on Max because that I thought was where we might start. Um,
See what I did there?
yeah, it was excellent. Every segue is going to segue straight into Max anyway. So look, this season has become a two horse race between two McLaren drivers, and yet Max
No kidding.
and by a little bit behind Lewis have been sort of the stories of the season. But let's talk about Max because actually I think we haven't talked about him very much in the last few episodes, and I always feel like we're maybe forgetting him a little bit, and I don't want to do that. So we both listened to a an episode of the High Performance podcast where Max's former performance coach, his sort of equivalent to Angela Cullen, who works for Lewis, um, he did a hour and a half long episode with the high performance team. His name is Bradley Scanes. He worked with Max from middle of 2020, I think it was, right away through to the end of 2023. And I don't know about you, but there are a lot of podcasts out there that get a lot of guests on. They often get former drivers. But very rarely do I listen to a podcast where literally every single word is absolute gold. Like I could not stop listening to what Bradley Scanes had to
Are
say.
you saying Peter Windsor is empty calories? Wow. Okay.
I'm
Just so you
saying, I'm
know,
saying, I'm saying,
just so
I'm
there
not,
might be a
I'm
friend
not,
you know that
I'm
might
not,
take offense.
I'm not
Be
saying that.
careful, you might get blocked too, by the
Also,
way.
don't know
So.
why that came up, but this is a podcast about a driver that we are all very interested in, and we got a deep dive. And as much as you can, as much as you want to talk about Damon Hill and Peter Windsor and all the other guests that you see and hear on other podcasts, uh, none of them have an intimate insight into the inner workings of a particular driver. I thought
Yep.
the other sort of YouTube episode that came out quite recently that was super fun to watch was Chris Harris and Max Verstappen in the same car, and Chris was asking him some of the questions that I think we all want to ask him, and finding out that actually he's just a car guy like the rest of us. But this was a super interesting look into the inner world of Max Verstappen in a window that I think was really important. That sort of 2021, 2022 period where I think we all want to have a bit more insight into what was going through like these guys' minds and how they approached those two seasons, that the 2021 season especially. This sort of shone a light on it in a way that I haven't really seen in anything else. And for me, I was hanging on every word. How did you ingest it?
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway was that we do not know enough about these guys. And none of them. I mean, I think in this scope we're talking about Max, but I almost guarantee you anyone else that was interviewed that works with these drivers, trainers, physical trainers, psychologists, whatever, they really, I mean, they humanize the athlete, right? And we expect these athletes to go quickest, make no mistakes, none of the above, behave like complete robots, right? And what I think this podcast did was really humanize the sort of the human aspect of Max. And of course, it's all about how to be successful. And there are many of us there are many sort of philosophies out there on what's the best way to be successful. We'll get into that, but the reality was that you would walk away from this podcast recognizing what it takes to kind of do this work and be at the apex of championship pedigree, right? And 2021 was all about Max and Lewis going at it. And one of the fascinating things, Shez, is that in the heat of the battle, you were either in the Max camp or the Lewis camp. By the way, I was in neither. I was in the loser Ferrari camp. So I think I have a little bit of an objective sort of opinion to this, but I felt like there was a lot of demonizing of the other side. And I think what this podcast lived to serve is that there was just way more to it than just that. Of course, there was gamesmanship, a lot that we knew, a lot that we don't know of. But I thought this was a brilliant way to kind of learn what it takes to be Max in this case. Yeah.
That's cool. So your sort of big interest point was really how he approached 2021. Is that was
yeah. And Shez, we've talked about this repeatedly, right? I'm always fascinated by the sociology of how this works, right? I mean, and one of the things that I find, and to your point of what other podcasts do, I think I'll say it out loud, it is all empty calories. It's all about clickbaits and stuff like that, right? Because it's someone coming out and shouting and saying, oh, he's a loser, or he bottles it, blah blah blah. It's superficial analysis that I guarantee you all of these drivers, that if they ever have the time to listen to this crap, really they would not like. But the whole listening to a podcast like this really shows you what it takes to be successful and the amount of sacrifice it takes, Shez. And by the way, this podcast was specifically about Max, but again, you would get that for every other driver. It's just that Max has manifested himself into this sort of apex competitor, right? But that would be true for Lando Norris to some extent. That would be true for Oscar Piastri. These guys sacrifice so much day in and day out. I mean, there is a point, and I don't want to kind of get ahead here, but there's a point in time where, what's the trainer? Is it Paul, right? Paul Skeens, I think. Is that correct? Did I have it right? Bradley, sorry. No, of course, that tells you how much I was listening. Bradley says, he was talking about Max doing these breathing exercises right before the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, or even in Saudi, right? I mean, that's crazy stuff, man. And we just expect that the driver puts the helmet on and then just sort of goes down there. And so Bradley humanized that, right? And that's what I love more than everything else. I know we'll get into all the sort of the fights with the Lewis Hamilton camp and gamesmanship, et cetera, et cetera. And I think many of us would benefit by listening to podcasts like this. So this is my unofficial plug for the podcast.
Yikes! Like I don't want to crap on everybody else's.
I'm not crapping, but let's be honest, Shez. I mean, we've done clickbait stuff too.
Because that is what
what's wrong with
that? Yeah, absolutely, that's what we do. Because we don't have the luxury of being able to get guests like that on. But I think we do have an opportunity to at least use stuff like this to get into how these drivers, especially Max, right? Because Max is the kind of guy, and they said this on the podcast as well, that he's a bit of an enigma, right? He doesn't do a lot of interviews. He doesn't like talking to the press, so you don't get like a proper widescreen idea of how he goes about racing and what makes him tick. But
Kimmy.
No.
Yeah, read Kimmy's biography. It's very identical.
Yeah, I get that. I understand the parallel, but I think it's more interesting for me to see what Max has done, just because of the level of success that he has enjoyed and the story of him coming up. To hear that from somebody that is in that inner circle, like this is invaluable to me. We don't get this, and I am constantly like fascinated by Max Verstappen because I think for me he is the epitome of that question about talent versus environment, right? Like how much of the makeup of a driver is just what they're born with versus how much of it is the hard work they put in. And for me, like all of the 2021 stuff and all of the cattiness between both sides and the gamesmanship and all of that is irrelevant to me. For me, being a Formula One driver is about focusing on yourself, right? In fact, forget Formula One. Just any kind of top level sport is about focusing on yourself and being the absolute best that you can be. But how do you get there? Because one of the things that they talked about a lot in that podcast is about the fact that people often say about Max, he's just born with it. He's got more talent than everybody else, and I've talked about this so many times. I feel like it's I'm on like a repeat here. That I think that talent is massively overrated, or at least in the sense that talent can be wasted if you don't put in the hard work, and that is what Max has had. He's had this upbringing where he has had in his corner a guy that has been through it and learned what the mistakes were, been exposed to all the pitfalls and fallen short of what he thinks he should have been, his dad, right? And he has used all of that to put Max in situations where he has to learn how to do something. His adaptability, his cornering style, all of that comes from the fact that Joss put him in an underpowered car, made him go out in the wet, made him go up against rivals where he was starting at the back and had to fight his way through. So all of the things that you see now that we call talent, right? Because we don't have a better word for it when we don't understand the work that's been put into it, right? That's the stuff that I want to hear about. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what I find fascinating because that to me tells me that this isn't about talent. This is about the slow build up, that every single day doing a little bit. That Bradley Scanes talks about like the sort of 1% little improvements. And those are the things that make Max who he is, that make him get better every day, and allowed him to improve over the course of that 2021 season. Sorry, Ammar, go for it.
No, you're fine. And I think I would just add on to this and say that we live in a day and age where we value greatness just by looking at statistics purely, and by sort of saying this, we have this mentality now where winning one championship isn't enough, right? Now it's a question of, can you win twice? Can you win three? Can you win four? Can you win? And by the way, this applies in every sport as well. We're so enamored with the fact that having rings, or championship rings rather, or championships themselves is the benchmark of success. Whereas what the beauty of Max Verstappen is the process. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the guy sitting right behind me here, Kobe Bryant. I mean, it is well chronicled about how Kobe went about preparing for games and all the stuff that he went to. And Max's story is very similar in that regard. And what I would say, Shez, is if you look at the greatest of the greatest athletes across sports, they share this common theme, which is their uncanny ability to sacrifice everything for a singular goal. By the way, this applies to Lewis as well. I know there's a lot of talk about, oh, he's doing the Met Gala and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is you don't just win as many times as you do without sort of doing that. So maybe the flavor and the approach might be slightly different, but all of these athletes and the superstar athletes, right? The LeBron Jameses of the world, and I'm sure you'll have some in soccer references too that I don't know of, right? They separate themselves, the Tom Brady's of the world. They kind of sacrifice, they make these unimaginable sacrifice. And by the way, speaking of a good podcast on this, listen to Mind the Game with LeBron James and JJ Redick. When they first started, LeBron talks about how he would give up several different family engagements, all kinds of partying, everything that a pro athlete like Max or LeBron would have in front of them, is all the money in the world, access to all kinds of distractions, right? And they kind of give up all of that for the singular focus. So I think Max's example is kind of the same in that he spends so much time in the simulator. And I know that people saying a lot of crap about that too, but look, he's successful. Who's going to argue with that? So again, I think the human element of something like this and having the curiosity, Shez, which you have, by the way, to learn about this is what makes something like this valuable. I guarantee you it's not as exciting as debating and shouting at each other, but this is how life works.
The sim thing I find really interesting as well, and actually your point about preparation beforehand, and I think that was one thing that came out of this interview that I found again enlightening in terms of how we classify generational talent, right? So that they sort of talked about it in a roundabout kind of way, but they talked about the fact that Max famously doesn't do a track walk, right? Like he doesn't go and learn a track he doesn't go and learn a track by running around the track. He talked about it in the Chris Harris YouTube episode as well. But actually he does hours and hours and hours and hours on the sim beforehand. And this is something that I think a generational talent does, right? There's something that you bring to the table that moves things along. They characterized it here in that Max, like everybody else does a track walk, but Max doesn't because he doesn't want to follow the crowd. But actually, I would characterize it slightly differently, in that drivers like Max, like Michael Schumacher, like Ayrton Senna before him, like Lewis Hamilton, changed the way that drivers go about their craft, right? Like before Michael Schumacher turned up, the focus on fitness was very minimal, right? You had to be fit enough to get around a race,
Light enough, basically, not too heavy.
well, actually, not even that. Like you know that Nigel Mansell was a pretty big guy, but he was strong, and that's what gave him an advantage in that 1992 car. But actually, we were starting to move to a formula where actually peak fitness was what it was all about. So he would have a mobile gym, he'd have people doing blood tests on him to check that his electrolytes were okay, someone doing his diet, someone doing his gym routine, and he would get out of a car and he would be fresh as a daisy while everybody else on the podium and down in the paddock were collapsing. That's the paradigm shift that Michael Schumacher made, because after that point, if you didn't do that, you weren't doing enough. And Max is now starting to show that, the sim. And my mate Cameron's going to absolutely love this, because we argue about this all the time. But he's starting to show that learning the track, the tidbit that's been in all the trailers, is that he found somebody online to write the Jeddah Corniche track when Red Bull didn't even have it on the simulator. So he put it on his simulator and then drove the track and then did the lap that he did in qualifying. I forget what happened at the end, but up until that point, that was because he went on the sim and did what he did on the sim. And we're starting to find that other drivers are now having to do that too. You're even finding that Lewis Hamilton is spending more and more time in the sim, something that he hates doing, because there's time to be found there. And maybe that's the paradigm shift that Max is creating, that sort of move to needing to use the virtual world as well as the physical world. Now, I'm not saying that works for everybody, and that the argument I'm always going to get back from Cameron certainly is that Lewis should be in the sim all the time. In fact, we make a joke about it.
Well,
but what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. That's what I'm saying. But the level of the intensity of preparation that Max goes to before every race, I think that's the paradigm shift that is happening. That's what defines him as a generational driver. It's not the wheel to wheel moves or the electrifying pace over a qualifying lap. That happens because of all of that prep work that he has done. which is something that I think other drivers are going to have to copy going forwards, and that's what makes him a generational driver, because he's forcing a paradigm shift. Sorry, go on.
No, I think it's absolutely correct. And again, I would not, we do not have to do this reductive thing of if Max is doing it, then Lewis has to do it, or vice versa. Like that, there are more ways to success than one. Lewis's success story in and of itself is quite amazing. I mean, look where he showed up, and his first year was this close to winning a championship too, right? Which I'm glad he didn't win, by the way. But but so we do not have to do this thing, right? I mean, every athlete and Max is of a different generation. Like let's not forget that too. I mean, Lewis is kind of the old guard now. It's him and Alonso. Like Max is the present, and then you have these group of drivers that are sort of behind. So Shez, you're absolutely correct. A generational driver doesn't just win championships; he actually shapes the way a sport works and a sport moves moving forward. And I think Max has absolutely done that. So the critics of him that say that he spends too much time in the sim or e-racing or whatever, I would just say go kick rocks, because Max is being Max, and we've seen how he's dazzled even this season when Red Bull has had an iota of a chance, right? I mean, we talk about Imola and Japan and all of those things, and like those things don't just happen. And so the upshot to this is like, to me, Shez, and I want to kind of take it in this direction, is not necessarily the sort of the preparation mode, because we've talked about that too. But what I found fascinating in the podcast was in 2021, the mind games that were going on between Max and his crew. I'm not talking about Red Bull necessarily, and Lewis and Angela too, right? Like this, that's quite amazing. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, that wasn't.
Did it make you upset slightly?
No, that wasn't a bit of it that I found interesting, but it was cool to try and get under the skin of.
You didn't enjoy the fact that that Lewis always takes time to get ready, and so then Max at some point decided you didn't enjoy that. I love that.
Yeah, I did love
that. That is the kind of mind game that's amazing. It is so petty, right, on both ends, and yet it is the best thing. I was like, why don't we know about stuff like this? Like we knew everything about what was happening with Michael Massey, but we never knew stuff like this. Like that's fun.
Yeah, 100%. And actually that insight into what Max was like going into that Abu Dhabi race, where Bradley Scanes had to get him back into the mindset of like, you have to go back to just treating this like it's any other race. Right? Which is something that we hear all the time, right? That you have to treat it like it's just another race, otherwise you're gonna create problems for yourself. And yet Max was doing exactly that, and actually I had like a whole heap of like sliding doors moments where I was like, oh, if Max had not stayed in the Middle East and had gone back to Monaco,
who
or
knows?
whatever, like would he have performed worse if he hadn't had his performance coach sitting there going, look, come on, get back into your right mind? Would he have performed worse? And yet the thing that really defined Max was that every time he got in the car, it was just full on. Like it never drops a beat. And it's just the same Max again. And I mean, maybe that speaks a lot to the fact that there's so much spare capacity, that the driving is completely second nature. But in that moment, under that high pressure, he just carries on performing as he always does. Like there was never, like, did you actually watch that race and at any point think that either Max or Lewis were going to fall off the road of their own accord?
No, I never thought that for a second.
Because they were both just driving at such a high level, right?
They I mean, the other guys were literally like being lapped at some point. Like I'd have to go back and see but I remember Daniel Ricciardo kind of making way, and like, there was like, we don't want any of this. Like it was like there was no need for a blue flag in that race for these two guys. Everyone's like, okay, I'll just park it here on the side and then keep moving.
But yeah, I mean, going back to it, it just reminded me like what a titanic battle 2021 was. Right? I mean, these two guys. And like, look, yeah, go on.
No, I was going to ask you a question, but finish your thought.
I mean, what I was going to say is like there's so much animosity between the Max camp and the Lewis camp, and online, and who's better and who's a goat and blah blah blah. These two elevated their driving to a completely
destroyed
different
the field
plane.
Yes.
The Max was a bit quicker than the Red Bull. The Red Bull was a bit quicker. Who freaking cares, man? These cars were as close as they possibly could be, and these two drivers were 20, 30 seconds up the road from everybody else, including their own teammates. That's the level that these guys got to. And yeah, I mean, the beauty of this interview is that we get understand what it took, like at an emotional, physical, intellectual, like hard work level to do that week in, week out. Sorry, go on.
So Shez, not that I want to be the content creator for F1, but this conversation and the coverage of the driver behind the scenes is exactly what F1's missing, right? This is the secret sauce, right? Because F1 as a sport to a general audience is way too complex, right? But the beauty of what these athletes do and how they do things behind the scenes, that's what needs to be covered in all of this. Now, I'll move on. Shez, quick question for you. If Max hadn't won 2021, would you feel differently about everything that Bradley said?
No, no, because of the thing that I just said, which is that these two drivers were on a different planet to everybody else.
Yeah, but do you appreciate all of this less?
Appreciate what less?
Everything that goes into making Max Max. I mean, if that results in a failure, right? When the margin was so thin, right? I mean, he was effectively losing that race. I'm not stating something controversial, right? Let's say the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix ended without Latifi crashing,
the result
or like,
of
you know,
the result of that race is irrelevant to the conversation that we are having about Max's level.
I'm glad you said that, and that's what I was trying to say earlier, is that we are so enamored with the final results that we forget the process that went in there. And so I would equally be interested in knowing what Lewis's process was, because Bradley refers to the fact that he had a back and forth with Angela after, was it Saudi or something like that, where they literally got into it, right? Did you hear that part where where she said something to the effect of, "Were you trying to kill him?" or something like that? I can't remember exactly what it was verbatim.
It was about Jeddah, wasn't it? Yeah,
but I think so there you go, Saudi. Yeah, but
I think the difference with Lewis is that we get a lot more from Lewis. Like, okay,
no, you don't.
You don't think you do? Like,
no,
every now and again,
you get public persona, and I want to get into this too, because there's a Lando Norris angle to this too. Max chooses to say nothing, kind of like what I loved about Kimi, which is he would basically say nothing. That was his personality. That was his style. That might have been his sort of social compass or lens, if you want to put it. Lewis tends to be more proactive in terms of proactive. He tends to be more vocal in terms of what he wants to share, because he also views his role as more than just on track. He views his responsibility differently. This is why I don't like comparisons. The reason Lewis Hamilton is so vocal about stuff is that he feels, rightly, wrongly, or otherwise, he feels that as a pro athlete at the top of his game in Formula One, in a sport where there is no diversity, he feels like he needs to say a lot of things. He needs to wear his heart, because he thinks that will help inspire future generations of kids that look more like him. So it is a complete different thing. Whether you disagree or agree with the tone of his comments, I know sometimes he tends to wear his sleeve hard on his sleeve too much. That's a different thing. But I guarantee you, part of Lewis Hamilton's makeup and his drive to keep competing is just that. You don't have to agree with whether he's continuing or not, or whether he's distracted or not. But Shez, this is why I don't like to do the comparison.
I think that's a total lie. Everyone loves to do the comparison. Otherwise, what are we doing here?
I'm talking about myself.
But yeah, I mean, I take but yeah, I do take your point, and I'm not averse to doing that comparison. I love doing it, but I think
I would say comparison is fine if it gives.
When you boil it down,
it has to be an and, not or, Shez. It has to be an and thing. It cannot be.
Yeah, I mean, the fact
Max
that
is doing, therefore he's better, or Lewis is doing, therefore he's worse.
Yeah,
that's not. What they're showing you is there are different ways to be successful.
Yes. Yeah. But it's never going to stop these arguments from happening, and everyone's going to have their own favorite. That's just the world, isn't it? But it doesn't take away the fact that Max is a generational driver, and it's stuff like this, these little insights that make us understand. And I'm just happy that it proves my point that this isn't about talent, that it is about hard work, and it is about deliberate practice and how you practice it and what you do to get yourself to the point that you are an absolute expert in the field that you're in. Go on.
Shez, will you also include the fact that it has to do with luck to a certain extent too, and luck not in the sense of what happened at the end of a particular season, but luck in terms of where you're at. I mean, we know that Formula One is about the cars as much as about the drivers too. So some of it also has to do with being at the right place at the right time. Now, just being at the right place at the right time does not guarantee success. You still have to go out and win, and you might be competing with your teammate. You might be trying to upstage a seven-time champion. It could be a different variety of things, but it does take, you do need a car, you do need a team. By the way, Bradley referenced that too. He said don't wear them too hard, right? In 2021 they need to all feel like they're a part of it. Don't be abrasive. Don't, did you see I did my homework, Chess? I mean, he kind of
But
included
by
all of
homework,
those
you
things,
mean
right?
listening to the podcast?
Listen, come on, man.
Well done.
I gave you so much love at the beginning. Here we are.
What you want, a
but
cookie?
Again, wow. All right. Okay. Maybe have Peter Windsor on next time. So I think again the beauty of this is what it takes to be successful, and it doesn't just take yourself. But I think one of the underrated things is what Max has meant in terms of his connection to his engineers, to all of the Red Bull pit crew, etc. Everyone that's behind the scenes too, and it's no different for Lewis too, and I'm sure for every other driver that's been successful, not once or twice, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, Michael Schumacher famously knew everybody's birthday and their kids' birthdays, and what like what their kids' favorite hamster's name was. It was unbelievable.
I just want everyone to know that you have to appreciate the greatness of what it takes to be there, and not just get so focused on he didn't make the first turn or he bottled it. Like that is so I'm gonna say
you've
stupid.
made it a Lando thing. Sure.
I do want to bring Lando and Shez. Are you ready? You ready for this?
Yeah, go for it.
Now, Bradley talked about how criticized Max is because he doesn't share anything about himself, or at least hasn't traditionally shared. I think this season we've seen a bit of a change. I think maybe just maturing and getting older, I guess, if it's the right way to put it. Maybe becoming a dad, maybe having more perspective as you win. Maybe it's different when you're going for your first championship versus trying to win your fifth or sixth or seventh or whatever it is, right? This is what I absolutely love. You look at Max Verstappen from a personality standpoint, and you listen to Bradley and kind of get his feedback for why Max is criticized, which is he does not want to open the door to anything at all, period. Like whether he views that as a distraction, whatever it may be, he doesn't want to share anything. On the other hand, Lando Norris comes out and wears his heart on his sleeve. And what do we do, Shez? I'm looking at you, Shez. What do? You say, oh, doesn't have the mental makeup, blah blah blah, needs to get a psych. I mean, good God,
stand by that.
Can we just not?
I stand by it. I don't think any of that is incorrect, because there is a deficiency in Lando's driving at the moment.
Okay, well, I'm not talking about driving. I'm talking about personality.
Yeah, but that personality is bleeding into his driving, and that isn't bridged by whatever preparation or hard work or deliberate practice that he is doing, because he's continuing to make those mistakes.
So let's put the driving on the side for a second, right? Because that's a different debate. I just want you to tell me, what should Lando do in this case? Should he be more like Max and be like, yeah, next question kind of thing, which Max has been over the years, maybe barring the last few months? Or should he?
Ammar, I don't care what Lando does. He needs to get rid of those mistakes. Whatever he needs to do to get rid of those mistakes, that's what he needs to do. But he has not found that, or he hasn't been doing it, or it hasn't been ingrained in him from an early enough stage to allow him to bridge that gap. Whereas any of the deficiencies that we have seen in Max earlier or in Lewis earlier, they've been ironed out through sheer hard will and hard work. Right, and it didn't happen over a long period of time. It's literally between seasons, and you're seeing that with Oscar as well. Oscar had a problem with tire management in season 1. It was almost gone by season 2. He had a problem with pure pace in season 2. That seems to have completely gone by season 3. So you see how the focus on deliberate practice makes you a better driver. Whereas Lando Norris, let me finish this because you finished your point. Lando Norris has had the same problem year on year on year on year. So that tells me that whatever approach he is applying to this is not working. And that's why there is a deficiency
and that could
in the driving results.
And that could be one of 15 things. And we don't know enough. And my point always is we don't know everything, as is revealed by this podcast, where the guy who's training Max tells you stories that we had no idea about. And that could, the same thing could apply there. And so I'm not here to defend Lando or his driving style or anything like that. I 100% agree. I mean, the results speak for themselves. He doesn't need me to defend. But I would just tell you that as you're looking at athletes with personalities and how they choose to wear themselves, behold the differences and maybe appreciate it. Maybe someone who doesn't want to share anything, completely fine. On the other hand, someone who wants to wear his sleeve, that could be the way forward too. So my point here was that appreciate Max for who he is, but that doesn't mean you need to be reductive and take something else from someone else. The racing part aside, that's a completely different thing. We'll have to revisit that at the end of the season. We'll see.
You brought up Lando Norris. Anyway, listen.
I brought up personality. I wasn't saying, oh, he's driving great. I didn't say anything like that. But I was very clear on what I was doing.
That's the problem, though, is that when the personality starts to bleed into the driving, there's something that needs to be...
We don't know that.
There needs to... Well, then I don't know what the problem is.
We don't know anything to say about
then maybe it's an ability.
It could just be that he lacks talent.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe he doesn't have the same talent.
Like I said, talent for me is overrated. So perhaps there is a deliberate practice thing that he hasn't done that he needs to focus on. I don't know. But this is what a performance coach is supposed to be.
We'll have to pin this for the end of the season, because if he wins the championship, then we'll have to come back and we'll have to hear your logic for why he won, which is going to be some form of...
It will probably be because he has improved. And he has found the thing that he needed to do to bridge that deficiency.
Shez, my point to you wasn't that he needs to improve to win the champ. My point to you is he is telling you, I'm again focusing, we're talking about the sociology of the athlete. We're not talking about what it takes to be successful on the track in terms of, oh, win this race, win that race. That's a different debate. My point to you is he himself is admitting to you, and that is the exact opposite of what Max does. That is, by the way, Lando is doing something similar to what Lewis has done, which is sort of wear his heart on his sleeve. And so what I'm saying is you can appreciate that without saying, oh my God, like, yes, you're driving amazing. That's not what I'm saying. Those results will take care of themselves. And yes, if he doesn't improve, of course he's not going to win. Like, he does. I don't need to be the one saying that. But
there's wearing your heart on your sleeve and winning, and there's wearing your heart on your sleeve and then not winning.
But he has won. I mean, he's only 8 points away. Like, you're pretending like he's P10 in the standings or something.
Yeah, sure.
He's not that.
We've made some comments about how he has won some of those races. Anyway, listen, I do want to segue a little bit into some other little tidbits in the last 25 minutes. First one, Alex Palou. Palou? I don't know, man.
Palau.
Palau.
Alex Palau.
Well, he's an Indian rice dish.
Wow.
Sounds
really?
Sounds tasty.
So this is a perfect transition, no? Go ahead.
My Spanish
Will
is
he
really
be Max's
bad.
teammate? Come on, let's do
it. So tiny little bit of news on the circuit this week was that Red Bull had talks with Alex Palou's
Alex's representative. Let's do
There's
that.
too many Alexes for that to happen, right?
We already established.
As potentially a teammate to Max Verstappen, potentially a replacement for Max Verstappen if Max decides to leave Red Bull. I'm going to talk a little bit about the veracity of those claims in just a second, but how did you initially respond to that, Ammar?
I mean, I didn't pay any attention to it because Red Bull have lost all credibility I would have hit you with the who cares, because Red Bull and Toto Wolff are in the same group. They're like the confused shoppers at Walmart in our case. I don't know what you guys have over there, that do not know what they want to get. They want to try to get something at a discount, but you want to try to pay the least amount for the most value. That's how they're behaving.
In the interest of time, I want to take the clickbait out of it. And I want to talk to you about the concept, the concept of it, right? So Alex Palou is now a 4-time IndyCar champion.
Yes.
He has won the 2025 title with 3-4 races to spare. Is that right? I don't follow IndyCar well enough to really know this, but he is without question the best driver in IndyCar at the moment. I don't think that there's very much doubt about that. In the same sense that Max Verstappen is the best driver in Formula One right now. So, my question to you is, as a concept, what do you think about the best driver in IndyCar, head and shoulders above everybody else, coming into Formula One? How will he fare? especially in that Red Bull seat? And what do you think his prospects would be if that were to happen?
So as a general concept, Red Bull aside, I think anyone that would be coming from a different sport at this point in Formula One would certainly struggle. I mean, there have been other points in time in the past where that would have happened as well, but I think it's more true now because you're seeing that drivers within Formula One are changing teams and struggling. So I would imagine, and because Indy cars are so different than at least this generation of Formula One cars, that I think he would struggle massively. He really would, and that is not an indictment on Alex Palou by any stretch of the imagination. He's a champion in his own right, one of the greats, if not one of the greatest there. But the reality is that he would just simply struggle. I mean, maybe 2026 onwards, who knows if the cars get a little bit more easier to drive, but we've seen perpetually. I mean, you have a seven-time champion changing teams and struggling. I mean, he's literally in tears. By halfway through the season, he's like, I'm useless. So, I mean, there's your point for what that happens. And then for Red Bull, it's even worse. Although now that Christian Horner's left and Lauren Mekies has been doing some things to sort of level the playing field, if you will, in terms of access to, upgrades for the second driver. Maybe there's something there. But again, I think part of the issue with Red Bull is they're sort of, on the Max Verstappen train. It doesn't look like that second driver will really matter, even though Christian Horner is not there anymore. I think it's going to be that. So whoever comes in that seat is probably going to struggle. So I would imagine it's not a good idea for Alex. He should probably consider Cadillac, but oh well, that seat's taken.
I mean, I want to argue with you, but I can't because I think you're absolutely right. I think, especially in this day and age,
would you know it?
Yeah, IndyCar and Formula One are just two completely different disciplines. It's like asking a power boater to turn up and drive a Formula One car. No matter how good you are in the power boats, it doesn't necessarily translate into a Formula One car. And you can't just use the fact that they're a mid-engine car with a steering wheel and four wheels to suddenly say, right, you're on. But if it were to happen, it suddenly creates like a slightly different concept for me, in that what you're then doing, especially in that seat, is that you're basically turning it into a super sub or a star driver of the week kind of seat, because I can only see two scenarios in which Red Bull will do this. None of them work out well for Palou. The first is that he turns up and he's Max's teammate. Max doesn't go anywhere, and Alex ends up being in exactly the same position as all of Max's other teammates. But worse, because he's never driven a Formula One car in anger before, and therefore has a huge reputational hit from that. And by extension, IndyCar has a huge reputational hit as well, because at the moment you have people like Will Buxton turning around and saying, oh yeah, Alex Palou definitely deserves a shot in Formula One, because he is one of the greatest single-seater drivers currently driving in the world right now. But I don't think that is... I'm not disputing that side of it. He might be, but in that discipline, if you bring him to Formula One, he will struggle. Almost undoubtedly, he will struggle, especially in that car. And you're going to have to turn around and explain to everybody why this driver, who you previously have said is one of the greatest single-seater drivers driving at the moment, is doing so badly in Formula One. And the second scenario is that Max does leave, and Red Bull are suddenly having to turn to Alex Palou as the guy, and he's being beaten by his teammate, who, let's say is Yuki, let's say is Arvid Lindblad, who's turned up, and Arvid has had time in a previous Red Bull car. He has come up through the European Junior ranks recently, not years and years ago, and has been doing time in the Red Bull simulator for a huge amount of time, and you can't expect that driver to do worse than Alex Palou, who has come from IndyCar, where it's a completely different discipline, which I keep coming back to, and that's why I think this turns into that's why this turns into a star driver of the week kind of situation, because what are we doing here? He doesn't do very well, so why don't we stick Marc Marquez in the car? He's done pretty well. Sebastian Ogier in World Rally has always wanted to drive a Formula One car. Let's stick him in the Red Bull for a little while.
Sonny Hayes.
Let's get Brad Pitt in there. I mean, how many millions would that make? Just to see.
Actually, that's not a bad idea.
Right? Because he did all right in the McLaren when they put him on Circuit of the Americas, right? So why not? And that's why I don't like it as an idea, because you're doing it only because this guy's had a huge amount of success. But the only upside that it has, and the only entity that it has an upside for, is Formula One. Exactly. And for a short period of time, because that initial kind of Lewis Hamilton's just turned up at Ferrari moment, that aura moment will be there. And as soon as the reality hits of what it is actually like for him to try and get to grips with a completely different car that is so difficult to drive, especially in the current guise, it's just gonna turn into a nightmare. I don't need to see his reputation and IndyCar's reputation suffer like that. Go on.
So, I mean, I can see why there's attention on Alex Palou, right? I mean, but why is Red Bull interested? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, are they like just wanting to disband their academy, or like what's going on? I also heard rumors about Isaac Hadjar not wanting to get promoted, which is really odd. Like that's a weird purgatory to be in. Like, nobody wants to get in that seat. I mean, I guarantee you, if Yuki Tsunoda had a chance, he would just go back and say, "Hey, Liam, have that seat back, please." Like, nobody wants that too. So I think there's some fundamental issues. Now, I don't know if that story is true, or it's leaked through one of these Twitter sources that say source said, and then who knows who the source is. Somebody doing janitorial work at Red Bull maybe is the source. Who knows? And so I'm not quite convinced that they would actually do that. I think you're right. Arvid Lindblad seems like an appropriate sort of guy to come in. And yeah, if Max is going to leave, you're probably going to have access to Russell too, right? So I mean, there's going to be that. Like maybe Lando is available, maybe Charles is available. You never know. Like I mean, I don't even know you need to go that far for that. So I don't know that. I mean, there are two questions to this, right? Why Alex? But then if Max is leaving, that's a complete reset you're looking at essentially at that.
Yeah, I think if Max is leaving, Alex Palou is not the driver to look to. And just for clarity, I think the way this came about, and Red Bull have said this as well, is that Alex Palou's management approached Red Bull, but Red Bull were like, yeah, this is nonsense. It hasn't come from us at all. Okay, we should probably quickly touch on Cadillac announcing its 2 drivers. Cadillac is a team that everyone has been massively interested in. Every time we've done a video about Cadillac,
we're coming for you, baby.
Every time we have covered Cadillac on this channel, it has done gangbuster levels of views. Huge.
Yeah.
I jest. No one's been interested at all. But are people now more interested because Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas are suddenly there?
I mean, Checo's on a redemption tour, no? Like, I mean, can you imagine Checo finishing ahead of the second Red Bull car next season? Like, oh goodness, that would be something. I mean, I think it's a good choice at the end. I mean, I've heard some mixed reviews about Valtteri and Checo there, but for a team that's new, it's brand new. I mean, I think it makes all the sense in the world to kind of go with Bottas, who's been at Mercedes, who's been at the height of their success, and brings in so much more than any new driver would. And then I think the same is true for Checo, who's also had a string of successes and comes again from a sort of a Red Bull place where they've been successful too. And I think and if you're starting a new team today, I think in this day and age, I think it's fairly clear that you're gonna be struggling through stuff. I mean, we just got done talking about Alex Palou moving to Formula One. The same thing is going to be true to put new talent in there. And so I think until Cadillac have developed a bit of an identity for the first couple of years, at least, I don't see why they would want to go with anyone else. So these choices make complete sense in the world to me.
Yeah, I mean, I read a cool little article in Autosport actually, which would, I mean, I already thought it was a good idea. I think having these two is great. Partly just because it means I get to finally live out the who's better, Valtteri or Sergio question.
That'd be an interesting debate. So
I think it will probably answer nothing, but it will create some superficial answers at least. But no, there's an article in Autosport that came out. I think it may even have come out today, where they compared Cadillac coming in 26 to Red Bull starting in 2005. They were starting almost completely from scratch, and having a driver like David Coulthard that Red Bull did in 2005. Who had come from McLaren, who had been at Williams before that, was fundamental in how they were able to build up the structure of the team, were able to do the deals that they did. Adrian Newey famously was was wooed in part because David Coulthard had worked with him at both McLaren and Williams, and that's something that drivers like Bottas and Perez can do. It's they understand what it takes for a team from an infrastructure and culture point of view to be able to be successful in Formula One. And if you watch that that trailer that Cadillac did, it's not about races, it's about,
it's amazing.
What did they say? It's about results or future or something. But you're not going to have that future.
Who cares? I was just enjoying Valtteri, man.
If you don't have the infrastructure, right? But on top of that, they also have contacts with other entities within the paddock. So who knows? Perhaps Valtteri at some point could tempt James Allison across to Cadillac.
Well, that's just it, right?
Right, and that's
but I mean, we're talking about James Allison, but it could be others too, right?
Yeah.
Like they're going to be looking for a full staff.
Exactly,
them, so.
exactly, and having that driver as your spearhead, the face of your team, means that other people will be attracted to it as well. So overall, yes, I think there are, beyond the basic driving skill of those two drivers, I think they bring a lot of paddock and Formula One experience, and we know that Cadillac have been doing this already because they've got Pat Simmons in. Pat Simmons is there previously of the Renault parish, and subsequently in a role at the FIA. So he brings a unique perspective for them as well that's going to be invaluable to them, and I think that's a sensible way to go about recruiting to your team.
Christian Horner, team principal? No,
I hear no. I hear TWG have said absolutely no. That's not going to happen.
It's a good idea to bring Christian in there. No.
Maybe I think Graham,
again. I'm not here to do social commentary, but I'm just sort of, before anyone jumps on my throat.
I think Graham Loudon is probably going to say no to that. All right,
Gunther Steiner thing.
Okay, final little point. I don't know how much you've heard about this, but this intrigued me when I read about it back in May. But they've now done it. Zandvoort is going to have an increased pit lane speed limit to 80 kph from the usual 60. I'm just going to explain why this is interesting, right? Because what it means is that the amount of time that you spend in the pit lane is reduced, and that theoretically means that just going for an easy one stopper is not as straightforward a decision, because doing two stops with a shortened pit lane time loss might actually be the quicker way to do your race. The idea not being to force teams to do a two-stop race, but to at least enter into their thinking that a two-stop might be a better idea, and therefore introduce divergent strategies within a race, which I think is actually interesting. That I think is a theory. I had a fairly mildly heated debate with Baxley about this offline. He thought it was a complete load of exhibitionist nonsense. But I'm interested to know, with that explanation, what you think, Ammar.
I would be more in the Baxley camp, right? I mean, I why? I mean, why?
Because of the reasons that I just told you.
I know, because
what will happen is that it will just be.
Why do you need to do this? Yeah, but I know why you. I mean,
yes,
why?
That's why you need to do it.
Like, why? No, you don't need to. You don't need to do that mid-season. Then I mean, what is the point of this?
No, this isn't mid-season.
Do you realize that at some point
it's not a mid-season thing? Okay, let's just clarify that. There are 3 races where the pit lane speed limit is 60. Everywhere else it's 80. They decided that at Monaco it would be unsafe to increase the pit lane speed limit, but at Zandvoort they could do it. So that's why they've done it. It's not a snap decision.
And now it's going to rain, so there's that. Yeah,
well, they think there might be a shower. I think Finestra on our Johan Finestra on our feed has said that there might be a bit of a shower, but that's not a it's definitely gonna rain. But also it clarifies that this isn't a knee-jerk reaction.
Okay,
This is something
but Shez,
they had planned from
I
early
know,
on in
but
the season. So but just
so
to
then
answer
why
your
is it a
question to
news item?
why, if we were to go into that race and everybody does a one stop and it's just a procession because of that, versus we have a few teams going, okay, especially front running teams, or we have the two McLarens, for example, diverging their strategies as they have done up until now. If they go in different ways, does that not make the race more interesting?
I have a better idea, Shez. If this is the path you want to go, okay, you make a second pit stop, and every other pit stop, they take 10 seconds off your race time at the end. And so you might be 10 seconds behind first place. Boom, guess what? You're
Right,
first.
but
Let's do that.
you're
If that's what you
saying
want to do.
that increasing the pit lane speed limit is as artificial as adding a time penalty to your race time. Please explain.
Yes, when the motivation is clearly to get you to do more pit stops, then it is. No different than my opinion on doing the mandatory additional pit stop. Like, I mean, in Monaco rather.
No,
Why?
but
Why do you need to do
that's
this?
dumb because it's forcing everybody to do the same strategy. What this does is that it introduces the possibility that a divergent strategy
It's not.
might
I mean,
be
but
better.
Shez,
It's not. Why not?
okay, maybe because I don't know. Because I mean, make the tires better. I don't know.
I don't
mean,
know. Can't be the answer. But also, they have tried to make the tires
you don't
better.
know how it's gonna work. Okay,
They have tried to make
if
the
we
tires
go
better
through
because
this weekend,
we've had a couple of races where we've done more than one gap in the tire compound. So why is that not artificial?
Shez, my point in this is quite simple. I have been for reverse grids at sprints. I'm all for innovation when it makes sense. I don't like tinkering around with races within the season when you know there's a championship battle that's going to be very closely fought, right? No one cares about it, but that's going to be what it is, right? And I don't like the tinkering for the rest of this.
Planned change. They all knew
So
this
why
was going to
didn't
happen.
Okay, then why is it a news item? Fair enough. I take my position back. It's a planned change. Let's not worry about it.
It's a news item because this is the first race at which they're going to do it. But it has been planned from early on in the season. Everybody knew it was going to happen.
Okay, and then it's fine. Everyone knew it was going to happen.
So does that mean you've changed your mind that actually you think it's a good idea?
I don't think it's an idea because this was already planned. This had nothing to do with.
But it was an idea. It was planned to allow a divergence in strategy.
Okay. So let me be very clear. If this was already planned at the beginning of the season, that's fine. Like I'm all for making changes when it makes racing better, but when it's decided well in advance. If it was something that just happened overnight, then I don't know. And I don't know why they had to wait until what was it that they were gonna know possibly now that they didn't know before. But again, I don't have enough information for that. So I would say as a concept, if it was something that was approved ahead of time, that's fine. I would again say though that the problem with making changes like this is it's like doing 15 small things while not addressing the one big thing that could actually make racing more fun. So, but I know that's not a topic for this day per se, but it's fine if this was something that was decided ahead of time. I don't know if that's actually going to induce more pit stops or not. Well, we have to worry about tire wear. That's going to be the main thing.
I've just put this in the chat just in response to Michael Delorso, but I think I would have to revisit this. So check the article for yourselves, guys. But Autosport ran an article on this back in May, which is why I knew about it, and they reckon that increasing the pit lane speed limit could potentially reduce the pit lane time.
What if someone gets hurt?
Between 8 to 10 seconds. Well, okay, so that good question, but
there was a reason it was 16.
Yeah. But the FIA have looked into the safety element of that and decided that they can do it at Zandvoort. Okay. But that's why they haven't done it in Monaco, because they didn't think it would be safe enough to raise the pit lane speed limit. But everywhere else it is 80. It's just at Zandvoort, I think. Okay. Because of where it is, they changed it. Okay, Ammar, that's it. I think that for some reason that's the thing that we had an argument about the most. What do you guys think? Is it complete nonsense? Is it worth it? What do you guys think? Sure. What do you guys think about Max? Maybe I don't need to ask the viewers on this channel what you guys think. But does having a bit more insight into how he is as good as he is, what he has done to get there, that talent versus work ethic conversation, does that change how you view Max? Let us know. As usual, please like, please subscribe, please leave us a comment. We'll read every single one. We will reply to as many as we possibly can, and we will see you guys in